microphone. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's overview and scrutiny meeting. Thank you, everyone who's made it. Obviously, we've had a few people who haven't been able to make it today, but we are quorate, so we will proceed with the meeting as tabled on the agenda. Item 1 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 28th of October. Do any members have any comments to make on those minutes? Otherwise, could I see indications in favour of approving those? That's fine. We have approved those. Thank you very much. Apologies and substitutes. Julie, do you mind reading through the substantial list of changes?
Thank you, Chairman. I have apologies from Councillor Turner, Councillor Bushell, Councillor Dale, Councillor Eagle, Councillor Kittle-Morris, Councillor Ian Martin, and Councillor Nairn. And we have Councillor Askew and Councillor Wilkinson in attendance as substitutes.
Thank you very much. I don't have any chairman's announcements. I haven't been informed of any items of urgent business. Do any members have any declarations of interest that they want to bring to the attention of the committee? I see none. I don't know of any non-members wishing to address the meeting under item 6. And so that takes us to item 7, which is the key performance indicator proposal. Sarah is going to present in Mark's stead as he has been pinged. Sarah, can you take it away?
Thank you, Chair. So on behalf of Mark, I'm really happy to bring forward the proposed indicator list to the committee today. As per when we previously brought this to the committee, the list has been assembled in light of our new corporate plan and will be one of the ways the council provides updates as to how it is performing against what it has set out to do. We have sought to make changes based on the feedback that we received from this committee, as well as working alongside CMT to revise the list. I will let Claire cover off specific changes in a second, but we are seeking the committee to agree to the revised list so it can then be approved by Cabinet in the new year. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. My name's Claire Burton. I'm the Organisational Development and Performance Manager. Ryan is in my team, but unfortunately he's not able to make it today, so I'm presenting this to you. So you'll be pleased to see that the total number of KPIs has reduced. We've now got that down to 25. In terms of changes since we last presented to you at this committee, the main changes are the climate indicators have been reduced in light of our agreement to report annually on the climate strategy. The communities indicators have been removed due to the number of them, but we will be seeking to still report publicly in some form moving forwards. And then finally, the satisfaction indicators have been removed as work still needs to be done to align our organisational satisfaction to ensure that what we have is joined up, and we'll also be seeking to report on this once that work has been completed. And they are the main changes. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll go out to the floor first. I've got David, then Tim. David, and then Terry.
Thank you, Chair. Just one observation, really, Sarah. In view of the current situation that we're faced with, and we've discussed this, I know, at Council and elsewhere, about the lack of staff and problems with enforcement under the planning situation, is it not possible to also have a KPI with regard to responses to requests received by the enforcement team? Because we've got examples, certainly in Swaffham, of communications with enforcement back in June, which still have not been responded to at all. So I think because we are in a situation that we're all aware of with staffing issues, I know, but nevertheless, I think it's important that we have some measure of how that particular activity under the planning heading is performing. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tim.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a fair list of queries and comments, if that's all right. Well, we haven't got much else on the agenda. Okay, so the first 3 items I was looking at, just for confirmation on what they are. Are they more a placeholder for a qualitative report? I'm remembering that the Executive Director for Place and Delivery is going to be giving us an annual report there. because if you look at the second one, the jobs supported, I mean, we've got some hard data on that one because I presented a question back on the 25th of February, which is the ONS figures of job density. So I think we've got some hard figures, but I think this sort of works with a. Sorry, we've got a bit moving around. I just wanted to be clear exactly what we are doing with these figures, because on that second one again, on the job supported, it says safeguarded through the support from the service. And I'm just wondering what that is, from the council? What is the service?
So Rob has kindly offered to answer that one before you continue on your points.
So Councillor Burt's quite right. The ones listed here are those where we've had direct influence that we can quantify on an outcome. That will be complemented by a more general annual state of the district. So when it says jobs safeguarded by the service, it means as a consequence of a council intervention can be directly attributed. So these are direct intervention, but there will also be the report you referred to, which is a state of the nation, state of the district type report on things that we can't particularly attribute to our actions.
Carry on, Tim.
Excellent, thank you. I mean, I guessed that they were related because these are an annual frequency report. Okay, can we move on to customer contact then? This first one here, number of days customer contact performance drops below 90%. This is a peculiar one for me because it's an arbitrary 90% of an arbitrary target. And I'm just wondering how we are going to calculate this and what it means. Because if you end up with, say, 6, how does that help us understand the state that we are in? How does it help us understand what we need to do and where we need to go? I think that just having a single integer number there is unhelpful. And it follows on perhaps from the next group. You've got a lot of them which are a percentage, and I'd like to sort of do this across all of the ones where you've started a percentage. I think the concept, I mean, we can all work out what a percentage is, but I think it's useful in almost all of these to know what the magnitude is that we are talking about. So it is, so of automated customer web chats, for example, it's how many were successful out of how many. So we'd really want 2 numbers. We want a fraction there. We want to know what's our success rate and out of how many, rather than just having done that percentage calculation. And I think that follows with basically all of the ones which you start with a percentage. On that particular one about the chatbot interactions, it says percentage of chatbot interactions based over the overall number of customer web chat interactions. Again, the question is, how are we going to measure that unless you end up with the very last action of our chatbot saying, did we successfully complete what we needed to do? Are you happy with the result? So query on how we're actually going to assess that. Down to the bottom of the list on that page, on page 24, IT availability, you're only listing unscheduled reasons. I think from the perspective of the residents of Breckland, any reason where the IT is out could have is significant. And there's very little reason to have scheduled outages of a good system. So I would have thought all outages should be reported at that stage. I'm pleased to see on page 25 the democratic services KPI. Again, the percentage there is, as I mentioned before, I think the 2 numbers giving us the actual fraction would be much more beneficial. Go down to food businesses related generally satisfactory or above. Again, from an information perspective, would we not be better just having a list of 5 numbers at that point? You know, how many businesses got a 1, how many got a 2, how many got a 3, how many got a 4, how many got a 5? That gives you the complete set of information at a glance, rather than arbitrarily saying, well, you know, which got grouping up together some as an arbitrary pass mark as to what's acceptable. Go down to fly tipping, and again, I think what most residents, I mean, while successful outcome in terms of a fixed penalty notice is useful information, from a day-to-day perspective and people walking around in our lovely environment, what they want to know is how many fly tips there are. Is that going up or is it going down, rather than how many fixed penalty notices were issued? So can we do that again? Say how many were there, and then how many did we manage to issue fixed penalty notices? This trade waste customer conversion rate is a very, very specific KPI. It's I just wondered why we included that one. And then on to the last page, page 26. Again, a lot of percentages, the same thing I mentioned before about having the two numbers so that we know what out of what. Come on to the final ones, which are the climate. And I understand, yes, we're going to have a separate report on climate. And presumably we've got that coming up fairly soon if it's going to be an annual report, because we have that'll be New Year. But I'm mystified somewhat. Perhaps you can explain what this number of enforcement actions is taken with regard to climate, because it doesn't seem, again, we're talking about fixed penalty notices, but it's not clear about what it is we're chasing at that point. This gas, electric and water uses, yes, that's a useful figure because we'll be able to see that changing quarter over quarter. So that's useful, and that's all data that we've already got, so it's very, very easy to produce that. Just wondering whether we ought to be doing the same for our high profile, high carbon parts, which is our leisure centre and our bin lorry collections. These are really important, and are we able to do anything with those? Should we be reporting those within the same arena rather than leaving that to an annual report? And then the last one, number of trees planted. So I asked last time, I asked for the reasoning behind, because it was quoted as emissions reduced from trees planted. So we didn't manage to do that. So all we're now doing is reporting how many trees we've planted, which is great for the environment, very supportive, but we don't know what it does for climate. We're not quantifying the climate effect on that. So there's a long list to be thinking about.
Thank you, Tim, as always, for your very thorough list. We will, for ease of everyone, we're going to go through those one at a time. The ones which I think are uncontentious, I'm going to look for approval from the Commission, and we can just tick those off. The ones where I think we're going to need a bit more discussion, hopefully we can then drill down into, and obviously I'll look to you to work out whether or not it's contentious or not, because I may think it's not contentious and everyone else might disagree with me. So looking first at Tim's point in terms of percentages versus absolutes, I think it shouldn't be too difficult, unless anyone's going to tell me otherwise, to provide the absolute numbers as well as the percentages. Yeah, that's okay. And is the Commission broadly supportive of that? Excellent. So yes, that's our first bit of feedback, is could we also include the absolute figures as well as the percentages? I'm going to come back to the customer contact 90% point, because I think that needs a bit of discussion. The chatbot, I'm just again looking for confirmation. I'm presuming at the end of a chatbot chat that we do ask for the customer to confirm whether or not we've solved their issue in that string. Is that correct?
Thank you, Chairman. It's been developed, but essentially the question asked at the end, has this been resolved to your satisfaction?
Yeah.
As a measure of, concluding the interaction, as it were, successfully.
Okay, so I think that probably gives us the information we'd need to do a comparator. So we'll tick that one off. The percentage of IT availability, again, I have some sympathy with the argument that we should be monitoring both scheduled and unscheduled. Are members in agreement with that?
Thank you, Chairman. I am in agreement that we should monitor both, but as separate items rather than just a lump sum.
Took the words straight out of my mouth, Robert. So is that easy to do for you, scheduled and unscheduled split out? Sorry, yes.
Chairman, if I may, in the same way as on the percentages for this, we have to collect the data to culminate in the outcome that we've provided here. So the data's held. The distinction is what was being reported and what wasn't reported. So to calculate a percentage, we needed to know out of how many to calculate the percentage. So all the information's there. It's just we were trying to reduce the amount we report on. So the information you're asking for is there. It was just we were filtering what was not filtering. That's the
And
word.
just for clarity,
Simplifying what
would
was
it be
reported.
easy enough for you to produce
Yes.
it? Okay, fine. So we'll tick that one off. I've got split out businesses. Sorry, Tim, you'll have to just remind me what I meant by that. Oh, yes. So I had sympathy with the point. So on the food safety criteria, again, the Commission happy to get the numbers broken out by the 5 categories rather than splitting it into 2. Again, I was seeing nods. So if that would be all right, please. Go ahead, Robert.
In terms of follow-up of those figures, is there an action plan for those that only achieve 1 or 2 stars? So do we monitor improvements as well, or do we just monitor absolute numbers?
We monitor at each level, and then we target intervention at those scoring most poorly, and then we monitor their progress up the rating to a higher rating. So the answer is yes to all the points you made, Councillor.
Great. Then we've got how many, and then how many were enforced on the fly tipping. That's the fixed penalty notices. Do members have a strong view on this, Terry?
Thank you, Chairman. That was one of the ones that was on my list, actually, because what's really important to me, and I think others, is the monitoring of the number of incidents and also the tonnage, because even though the number of incidents can change, and it does, seasonal and all the rest of it, the tonnage is really important because obviously the cost varies greatly when people fly tip large items versus small ones. So I'm happy for us to monitor successful prosecutions. I think that's an improvement if we did monitor that, but I wouldn't want us to lose that data around incident numbers and tonnage figures, which was in the previous set of KPIs.
And are the Commission in agreement then? So we'd monitor number of incidents, tonnage, and also the number of FPNs handed out. Yeah, excellent. And then we'll come back to trade waste because Tim's asked a point about why we've got that specific one. Utilities usage, again, I'll come back. We can have a quick discussion about that. I'm looking for a nod. I'm assuming utilities usage is across all Breckland-owned sites. Maybe not a nod.
I don't know if I'm honest, but I can find out.
Okay, fine. That's great.
Chairman, I can possibly answer that partly in that I've been receiving gas and electricity usage on a monthly basis from our site, so that data is already available.
Okay, fine. So I think that covers all of the easy ones. We've got the customer contact 90% target. We've got the trade waste target. We've got the number of enforcement actions target. And then we also have the number of trees planted target. Do members have anything to add on the customer contacts query 90% target? Do members have a view on whether that's a helpful measure, whether the number's useful if they want something different there?
I mean, is that a fixed long-term target, or do we have a policy of continuous improvement to underpin that service?
I would assume the targets are able to be altered by cabinet. And so in the event that they felt that we were outperforming, then we could raise the target. I suppose the question is, if imagine every single day we performed at 91%, in theory, our target would come back and say 0 days where we perform below 90%. Is that better or worse than us having performed at 99% every day, except for 5 days where we performed at 89%? And query, does the Commission want to see that? Does the Commission have a strong view about which one's more meaningful and which one they would want to see in terms of Tim?
Just to kind of remove some of this? I mean, if 90% is our threshold, then change whatever our wait times and abandonment targets are to 90% of what they are now, and then report it. Do we meet them or not? You know, we're adding confusion into the KPI itself here, but I'm also going to query is say, how are we measuring this 90% of? Is it 90% of wait times per day meet the criteria? I mean, there's lots of different ways in which you could calculate this. You could sum it, you can average it, you can, and then you've got two things that you're looking at as well. So it's wait times and abandonment targets. 90% of both. It's just one, does one take precedence over the other? It's a very muddled KPI.
Paul, you looked like you were going to add something extremely helpful.
Chair, if I may, having set up some key performance indicators and models for a number of businesses and organisations, I think, and forgive me because I know that we know this, the key words here are key and indicator. The indicator is a prompt to action. It is not data. Behind an indicator is data, and a key performance indicator will prompt action to investigate the data and then to resolve it. So I guess that many of the observations that are being made are actually as part of the KPI process anyway, rather than anything else. I think that forgive me, this is your commission. The commission needs to be clear on two things. One is we're monitoring and have indicators that monitor, and two, that we're acting. And actually behind the key performance indicator is always going to be an action, which I think is some of the observations that have been made as self-fulfilling because actually they follow the indicator, period.
Thank you. Sarah, do you, because we're kind of in your hands on this one. I appreciate there are arguments around what it means. Are you confident at the moment that this indicator, if it starts showing more days where we're failing to hit the 90% target, and you'll outline later on the exact methodology behind that 90%, is going to help the Commission in identifying if we need to be pushing for more action in that area? Bit of a leading question. But...
Thank you. No, yes, I am, and I think Paul's covered it off. What this is trying to show is an indicator. There is monitoring going on, which this will then highlight if there is an issue, and they will come out with the reports which the officers give to cabinet members or not, and it will get picked up and flushed out. And I think the 90% is an accurate figure. I think I've got complete confidence in it.
Excellent. Your confidence is
My
noted.
confidence.
Claire, you wanted to add a point?
Not coming back next time. I'll
Put
leave that to
put that in
Mark,
the
but I've got
minutes.
confidence.
Put that in the minutes. Sorry, Claire, you go.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to clarify, it's 90% of calls received that are answered, so that is the 90%. However, what I will say that we'll do is we'll put in, certainly for the first ones, in the commentary, how they've been calculated, so it's really clear so that you can see the figures and the numbers.
Thank you. Are members happy with that then? I'm seeing no dissent. So moving on then, trade waste. Tim made the point, why do we care particularly about the trade waste target? I want to know how other members feel. Would you like to retain the trade waste target? And again, if either the executive members or the officer has a good reason that they want to retain it, go ahead, Robert.
I think the trade waste target is a sort of an indicator of an entrepreneurial council, and it is an initiative. We've taken that on as part of the new contract. So I think it should be monitored so that we can see how that policy element is progressing.
Very good. Anyone disagree with that, or can we okay, no dissension, we'll keep trade waste as it is. Then moving to utilities usage, Claire, you've already clarified that you're going to just double check exactly what that covers. Tim asked a question about whether or not we should be separately monitoring higher carbon output areas. Again, I'm conscious of Paul's point that these are KPIs, not data. Are members of the Commission feeling that that's a level of detail that they'd want to see on a quarterly basis, or is that something they think might be commentary in the annual report in relation to climate change? Again, Robert.
I mean, quarterly figures are very seasonal, so in themselves don't necessarily tell you a lot. An annual report of the quarterly totals would be satisfied both, I think.
Excellent. Are other members in agreement of that? Steve, I saw, yeah. Tim, do you want to add anything before I move off that point? Your eyes say yes. So.
Well, right. Yeah. You're quite right that the figures are seasonal. And one of the things that we're trying to do now is compare with the same where we were last year. And we do that on other KPIs when we're looking at them. So I am more inclined to think that quarterly reports on this could be useful, but I'm one person that seems that the consensus seems to be that we're not going to do that. So okay, I will reluctantly go with the consensus.
And I stress we are a dynamic committee. We can always change things later on or plead with our executive members to change what they're providing. So we can review once the new KPIs are in force. The last point was the number of trees planted. I think that's quite a clear measure. The county council made the mistake of saying they wanted to see the net number of trees planted, which is completely uncountable. But Robert, you have a point you want to make.
Well, the number of trees planted tells you nothing about if they're planted in advance of a drought, how many survive.
Another issue, yes.
How we measure the number successfully planted, of course, it may be the cost of control exceeds the cost of planting. I think as a raw measure, it's a starting point, but it's not necessarily a measure of success.
I would be inclined to agree, having driven around the Northern Distributor Road. So I don't know, do either of the executive members have a comment on how we might better identify whether our trees are surviving the initial planting period? Or Claire?
I think, if I'm honest, that would be one for Greg to answer in detail.
Okay.
I can take that back.
So at the moment, can I take it? Oh, Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say what Sarah said. Monitoring, you've got the North Kent Council working with parish councils. You've got National Tree Trust working with parish councils. So we're not controlling the numbers. We can't do that unless Greg goes out to the parishes and said, how many trees have you had from the Woodland Trust and this type of thing, then we can get some sort of figures. But even then, they've got to be the right trees. I don't think someone with the right trees being planted anyway. I planted 105 the other week, 4 of us, and one wet Sunday, a week last Sunday. I'm pretty certain someone with trees that's going to take carbon out of the air.
Noted. Okay.
There you go.
So as a starter for 10, we think it's fine as a target, do we? With a view to getting a bit more detail from Greg in due course. And yes, Tim, I think your comments will be the same. So fine. I had 2 points, if Terry will allow me, before I come to Terry. One was just to confirm that the percentage yield figure that you're responding on is going to be in relation to the fair value, as the latest fair value recorded of the assets that are generating that yield. Thank you, Paul. And then the second point was on the planning stats, so the 8-week and the 13-week plus extensions, it would be very helpful. Obviously, you're now providing the absolute figures as well as the percentages, but it would be very helpful to understand of those figures, how many of those are extensions versus actually within the statutory period. There are some councils where planning officers have encouraged applicants to extend, and that's not necessarily therefore giving you a complete view of how well we're doing in terms of our planning processes and meeting the statutory standards. So if we're able to split out the extensions figure, that would be great. That was my 2 points. And did anyone in the commission disagree with that before we go ahead, Robert?
Just to comment on that, I know that a neighbouring authority regularly issues 5 p.m. Friday requests for extension to agents on the basis of if you don't reply, there will be an extension. So it does need monitoring.
it does. I'm aware of another neighbouring authority where for my interest, I have a planning application at the moment in, and I've seen a number of extensions occur in the 2 years my application's been in so far. Sorry, Rob.
Yeah, Chairman, just to reassure you, it's already monitored in the contract monitoring board, so we can provide that information to you, because that challenge is routinely put by myself, the portfolio holder, and our client team to our contractors to make sure that extensions the time of the exception rather than the default, so we can provide that information.
Thank you very much. Terry, if you have any points left after we've done all of that.
Well, I had 3. The first one's been dealt with, which was the fly tipping one, and I think the second one has been dealt with, which is the percent of successfully collected bins. To be able to work that out, you would need to know the total number of bins possible to be collected, and also the number of bins not collected. What we really want to know is the number of bins not collected. So, if, you know, as long as we report on both aspects or the total, we can work out the difference ourselves. But you know, what we really want to know is the percent not collected. And the only other one really I wanted a bit more information about was the leisure centre usage, because we've had this debate at the Scrutiny Commission in the past. There's a big difference between monitoring the total number of individuals using our leisure centres and the total number of visits. Some people go to the gym or the swimming pool every single day, and therefore the visit numbers are really high. I think what we really want to know is the total number of people, individual people using our leisure centres, because we want as broad a range of possible people to use. That KPI there says individual participants. So are we going to be monitoring visits, or are we going to be monitoring the total number of individual people? That was really my question.
Can anyone answer that? Rihanna?
Yeah, so the data that we get from the contractor is individual visits, but we also get data that surrounds the number of memberships as well. And we're also able to see, as part of the 6 monthly report, where those users come from. So it'd be really difficult to track every single time whether that person's been in 1 day a week or 2 days a week, etc. But the visits gives a really good indication. And then we can also provide, probably on a 6 monthly or annual basis, the map that shows where those centres draw from. So there is a combination of data that we can provide, but as to unique individuals, very difficult.
I think that's a big improvement on what we've had in the past, because we've tended just to have visit numbers in the past and without any context. So what Rihanna just described there, actually, if we can have that, that's a big improvement.
Excellent. Are there any other members with any other comments on any of the KPI proposals? I see none. So are members happy that the cumulative aggregate responses that we've provided are our recommendation to, is it a recommendation to Cabinet now, or Council? Cabinet? Excellent. So fine, excellent. Well, thank you very much for that. We'll move off that item. Item 8 is the task and finish groups, which is to establish the Serco task and finish group. I am aware of Councillors Harvey, Wickerson, Turner, Wilkinson, Morton, Attwell and Burt all having volunteered to be members of that committee. Are there any members here who aren't already on that list who would like to be added? We can have up to 10. I think 7 is probably as high as I'd want to go in any event. But I don't want to dissuade anyone from putting themselves forward if they'd have a burning desire so to do. I'm seeing none. So there are 2 things that well, actually, sorry, I need to make a point of inquiry of my learned friends, which is 1, does the commission appoint the chairman of that task and finish group, or does the task and finish group appoint it in its first meeting?
I believe the Constitution says the chairman needs to be a member of the commission. I think it needs to be appointed by the commission, but Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong.
Turn mine.
Sorry.
Sorry, yes, I think that would be best, just to make sure that everybody's clear who the chair is before the task and finish group meet.
Very good. I know Councillor Wilkinson has volunteered himself as the chairman of that task and finish group. Are members supportive of that nomination? Sorry, David, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Should it not be that at the first meeting of the task and finish group is the appropriate time to appoint the chair?
That was the question that I just asked, and I was told that it was the commission that should do that now.
Oh, okay. I see.
Unless,
Sorry,
again,
okay.
I'm in the hands of the.
So to confirm the constitution, so rules and regulations regarding task and finish groups, the commission will appoint chairman. So the assumption is the commission appoints the chairman.
Are there any other members of the commission here who are seeking to be members of this task and finish group who would also like to put themselves forward as chairman in the Terry?
Put myself forward. Just making a point that I don't feel content voting for a chairman when I don't know what members of the task and finish group would be interested in doing it. We've had one nomination today, which is fair enough, but of the other members that have put themselves forward, I'm not able to tell if anybody else wants to do it. If Peter's the only one, great, but I don't have a choice before me.
Sorry, just could you read the wording again, please? I'm going to find a way of delegating this to the task and finish
The
group.
commissioner will appoint chairman to up to 8 task and finish groups within a year. Separate point is task and finish group shall comprise a group of up to 10 members appointed by the Overview and Scrutiny Commission. No cabinet members may serve on the task and finish group. The chairman of task and finish groups must be members of the Overview and Scrutiny Commission. It doesn't give you, well,
Doesn't
it says that
explicitly
it
give us
doesn't
powers of
explicitly.
delegation. Okay, fine. Well, right, before we come back to that rather annoying constitutional point, let's discuss what the terms of reference are of the task and finish group so we know what it's going to do first. So I think, was it Rihanna, you had some wording that you devised for the potential scope of the task and finish group's activities, and then we can amend if necessary. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So I've got 3 points covering potential areas to examine as part of the task and finish group. The first one, to scrutinise the performance of the current performance of the Serco contract. The second one, to examine the impacts of COVID and national supply chain issues on the mobilisation of the new contract. And the third one, to examine the governance arrangements in place to.
Thank you. Are members content that that term or set of terms of reference is sufficiently broad to allow you to carry out your activities on the Serco contract? Yeah, anything you want to add, David? No? Terry, and then Peter?
Thank you, Chair. I didn't put myself forward because frankly, I don't really have the time. But I just wanted to share that I had a really useful briefing with Unison recently, who've obviously been liaising with the staff. And through that, I was able to speak to some of the staff sort of working on the ground. I hope the working group take the opportunity to actually invite Unison and others to present to them and to discuss their viewpoint. We found that very, very useful when we were doing the fly tipping task and finish group, actually inviting people in to hear their sort of points of view. So hopefully that's something that they can do. And I think with those terms of reference, I think actually that gives them scope to do that.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on the terms of reference first? Yes, Peter.
Yeah, I did notice that at the moment there is issues with pay rises and contracts with that type of thing. So that's going to impact on Serco management directly. Obviously, that's going to come out in our investigation, if you like, into their services, because we've already had explanations, but we need to dig deeper into why, and obviously have the update from a few months ago as well.
Very good. And I have a comment from Rob on terms of reference.
Yeah, I think Councillor Jim's point around engaging relevant stakeholders and inviting them in, being their staff representatives, members of staff, I think is valid. I think we need to be careful when it's a third party body that we don't become involved in terms and conditions negotiation and arbitration. That's actually their responsibility. It seems an arbitrary line. So I think for me to hear the opinion of staff and management is entirely valid and can inform your decision making on the contract, but we can't see that as becoming involved directly in any negotiations that are happening between staff and their employers. So I think I'd just make sure that line's there.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to make that point. We can't be involved with that type of side of things with the unions and
Very good. Okay, it's fine. And yeah, the point is well made. The task and finish group is an extension of the commission itself. We're not a decision-making body, so our roles and responsibilities remain extant in the same way as this commission's. I am reminded by email, because Linda is watching us, that she has also volunteered to be chairman of that task and finish group. So that means that of the 7, we've got Councillor Turner and Councillor Wilkinson have put themselves forward. I've had no other members put themselves forward. Sorry, I'm doing this in the wrong order. First, can I just have a show of hands that members are satisfied with those terms of reference for the task and finish group? Thank David, you seem, no, okay. I don't want your hesitancy as your. And then now we've got to come to the point. So the commission must appoint the chairman. I've had 2 members who have been, who are seeking to sit on the task and finish group, who are also putting themselves forward as the potential chairman of that task and finish group. I'll take any comments first on that, and then I think we'll have to go to a vote on whom to appoint. David.
Sorry, just this is nothing personal, I hasten to add, but should the chair actually be a member as opposed to a substitute member in terms of the way that that's worded? Nothing personal, Pete. I'm just saying that in terms of yeah.
Sorry, Rob.
The explicit wording on the constitution is the chairman of task and finish groups must be members of the Overview and Scrutiny Commission. So I think that's a valid intervention.
Is that definitive? Peter, I'm sorry to say that apparently the constitution has disqualified you from being the chairman. So apologies for that. I should have known that earlier. In which case we only have one extant member who can validly put themselves forward to be the chairman of the task and finish group, and that is Councillor Turner. Are members content to appoint Councillor Turner as the chairman? I'm seeing no dissension. Can I just have a show of hands just for clarity? Thank you. That is passed. And then the last thing I'd like to do is just to formally agree that Councillors Harvey, Wickerson, Turner, Wilkinson, Morton, Atwell and Burt will be the 7 members of that task and finish group. Could I have a show of hands again, please, if you're in support of that? Thank you. Sorry, Peter, go ahead.
being a substitute member, that must disqualify me from sitting on that anyway then.
No, you can sit on it. Any member of the council except for executive members can sit on the task and finish group, but the wording prevents substitute members of the commission from being the chairman, which was a distinction I had not previously identified. So, okay, thank you. That was more painful than hopefully it needed to be. Apologies for that. If there's nothing else from members, we'll move off this item. Excellent, thank you. Item 9 is the outside body feedback. Are there any members who'd like to make representations from outside bodies? Robert and then Peter.
Not exactly feedback, but just to notify the Commission that Norfolk Health Overview and Scrutiny have cancelled its next meeting in order not to put further pressure on the NHS. Thank you.
Seems very sensible. And Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up to the mental health programme for young people and families, the Brecon Council's funded. That is now going ahead. The recruitment's all in place and we should be up and running in the new year. And at the QEH Hospital, as Governor and Trust member down there for Breckland, there's the escapology, no, escapee. I think that's how you pronounce it. That's it. Just keep that in your head. I just had planning permission from Kings Lynn, West Norfolk Planning, so that's going to go ahead. And there's also been funding from government for a new eye department as well as an individual building. So they are, what I'm trying to say is until they can get themselves on the list for the new government hospital build, which probably would be 10, 15 years down the line anyway, there is patient safety being thought of by new buildings going up and extensions to bring them out of the dilapidated building where there is issues with the roof.
Thank you very much. Any other members outside body feedback? Seeing none. Item 10 is scrutiny call-ins. We have none. Item 11 is councillor calls for action. We have none. And item 12 is the work programme. Do members assembled have any comments on the work programme as it's currently tabled? Robert?
There's nothing down to the 10th of March.
Yes, well, who knows where we'll be in the 10th of March.
But there are a number of dates to be confirmed, so I don't know that any of those fit into that meeting.
Sorry, just explain your second point again.
Well, there's 4 items of dates to be confirmed, but no agenda items for the 10th of March.
Yes, so we will probably look to slot some of those TBC items into the 10th of March. I mean, if you have a preference, then please make it now and we can see if we can do it in the order that you suggest, but otherwise, I mean, I'll sort it out between now and the next meeting. So very good. Okay, are there any other members who wish to primarily to add anything or subtract anything from the work programme? No, excellent. All right then, well, thank you. That's got to be our record shortest meeting then. The date of the next meeting is the 27th of January, all being well. I understand that there may be room for us to change the format of the meeting depending on how the government addresses the new restrictions and rules as we go forward, and fingers crossed that we will have a flexible approach allowed for us. And with that, I bid you all good day. Thank you very much for coming, and see you next month, and have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.